Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. Bringing you this week's latest and greatest gaming news. I am your host, Sean Hayes. This is episode 308. Boy, do we have some news this week. Mostly a lot of stuff that's like personal. Like, the topics that I pick for the podcast each week are things that I personally find interesting or worth talking about. But some of the ones this week are like especially personally interesting. So, is it going to be the biggest news? Debatable. But I mean, we are still in a weird point in the console cycle where like there's not a lot of big new stuff coming out. So yeah, hope everyone weathered out the storm last night. We had a tropical storm come through. I was worried, so we did lose power for a bunch. I was a little worried that if we were going to be able to do the podcast this morning. But everything seems fine. So, yeah. So why don't we get right into it? I know we started a little bit late. So let's get into this week's headlines. So first up, Gamesindustry.biz reports that Blizzard has received approval from Microsoft to create a new AA studio under its portfolio. Now, this is something you don't really hear about, like double or single A studios a lot. But so basically a smaller studio under the Blizzard portfolio will be comprised of employees that they're going to shift over from King. And will work on titles based on existing Blizzard franchises. So speculation is that because they're coming over from King, is that Blizzard is looking for more ways to, capitalize on the mobile market. Maybe get some folks who are, especially like comfortable and experienced with mobile gaming, to work on mobile titles. Blizzard has had, some success. I mean, I think probably their biggest mobile success is Hearthstone. Warcraft Rumble, it was okay. But they fell into the, the usual Blizzard routine of like too long in between a content update, and like a lot of the audience dropped off hard with that game. And then just like weird PvP, but like Blizzard has not gotten PvP right with that game, which I guess matches for Warcraft. So, but yeah, so we can probably expect to see more mobile games from Blizzard with this. No, there was no announcement as to what the studio is called, so it seems like it might still be in very exploratory phases of like getting stuff set up. So yeah, new likely mobile game studio under Blizzard specifically. Next up, Polygon reports that Capcom has partnered with Humble Bundle to offer a summer games bundle to benefit Children's Miracle Network hospitals and Breakthrough T1D. The bundle, which I believe has 40 games for $30, features games like Street Fighter V Championship Edition, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy. There was so there was a couple more. There's another Ace Attorney compilation, a beat 'em up bundle. So like there's bundles of games within this bundle. Like So a lot of like compilations are included as part of this. So yeah, Humble Bundle's always great. This is pretty good value. Each game you get for 75 cents. So, and the proceeds go to good stuff. So, that is up now. So go check it out over at Humble Bundle. Not sponsored. I'm not sponsored by anybody. So, these are, again, things that I find interesting and worth talking about. And also, if you're looking for value propositions, Humble Bundle's always a good deal. Next up, so I talked about this previously with the Karlach and Astarion minis being in Project Sigil. Turns out it was showcased at D&D Live. There were some technical issues, I guess, and I don't know if they really prepped the cast on using the software before it goes live. Seems like the reaction is a little overblown, though, of like people treating it as it was like the worst thing ever. And I got news for people. D&D Live has always been a marketing piece. And Acquisitions like Ac Inc. proper has been a marketing piece for whatever the latest book series is, like whatever the latest adventure path. So like them doing a tech demo of their upcoming VTT platform, not surprising in the least. And they told you about it beforehand on social media. So whether it was announced at the convention itself, like at Gen Con, I don't know. But like I knew that they were showing off the virtual tabletop. So but anyway, they also announced signups are available for the closed beta. So in order to do that, you need a D&D Beyond account. It doesn't have to be a paid account. It can be a free one. And there will be basically like a post up on the website, like on the main page where it has like a sign up form. And that's it. That's all it needs to do. If you sign up, you will also get 5 access codes. There are 4 or 5 access codes so that you can invite your friends and /players to also participate in the closed beta. So, I'm intrigued. I haven't watched the D&D live game yet. But I am curious to see, like, for me, even if somebody is like fumbling to use a piece of software, getting to see the user interface and like what they're fumbling around with is still valuable information for a potential future user of that platform. People were reacting very harshly to it. And I wonder if those people have seen tech demos before. Especially tech demos of, say, Baldur's Gate 3. Because some of those were quite hilarious and like how often things were breaking and weird interactions that were happening. So yeah. But yeah. Signups are now live. Next up, Lorcana's Set 5 Shimmering Skies has been released. So you can pick it up right now at your local game store. It's not available at big box retail locations yet. With the exception, like, you can pick it up at like Disney Springs. So I think that's sort of the exception to the rule. But notable mechanics include racer synergy. So Wreck-It Ralph cards are not a sizable chunk of the set. So a lot of racers. There is a racing location. Tutoring, which is a term that Magic the Gathering players are familiar with due to a bunch of cards from the Mirage block, which were called tutors, where you basically just search your deck for a specific card and either add it to your hand, put it on top of your deck. So Lorcana has... so Shimmering Skies has at least 2 cards, one in Sapphire, one in Amethyst, that do this. I think I wasn't sure if they were going to do this kind of mechanic, but they did. It is much more costly than it is for Magic, so I think, might be appropriately balanced. So both of the effects cost 5 to do, which is like for most like tournament level games, probably 3/4 of the way through the game. So this is great. Like if it's late game and you haven't drawn the card you wanted, and you really need to ensure that you can close out a victory. Damage matters. So this isn't like it's more concept than a mechanic, but like of having damage counters on either the opposing characters or your own characters. Your own character is not really a new thing, but there is still an emphasized focus on that for Ruby. And then this is it's only present on a single card in the set, but it might be the most impactful card in the set, is playing a song for free when you play this character. So this is a card for Prince Naveen. It is probably so unless everybody's expectations are off, this will probably be one of the most impactful cards in the set. Will probably end up being the chase card. Certainly looking that way right now based on TCG player prices. But so he has Singer. I think he costs 4, but he has Singer 6. And it's when you play him, you can put a song of cost 6 or less. Like you can play a song of cost 6 or less for free. So it's kind of like he gets to sing the turn he comes into play without creating that as a specific mechanic. So it doesn't interact with Singer, but it kind of gives you the same benefit. So I was lucky enough to pull one. I'm not playing that dark archetype, so now I don't have to worry about getting one for the collection, which makes me happy because we'll see if it sticks, but current price is like around $35. So I think it might, because he's pretty good. So yeah, notable thing, a little weird production thing with Shimmering Skies. It looks like, so the legendary cards were produced a bit differently than in previous sets. It looks like they made the card without the character, and then the character is almost like applied with like a sticker. Like I thought it was embossed for a second. And then I actually looked at it, and there's like it looks like they applied it as a sticker on top of the card. And then I don't know if like they sealed it or something. It's very weird. And it's like it's not a foil effect. So, if you're a Lorcana player and you pick up some legendaries from Shimmering Skies, take a very close look at the character and see if you have like little sticker edges around it. So yeah, out now. If you are a Disney fan, it's a great game worth checking out. And and there's like a I forget how they call it, but basically a jumpstart. Oh, gateway. There's advertising cards right next to me. That's it. So there's a gateway product. So if you've never played before, it's intended to be like an onboarding product to help new players get into the game. Of note, I'm sure people will be upset. So these are like the ad cards. That replaces the art card that was previously the last card in the pack for booster packs. So no big sort of mural of the art cards. Seems like Ravensburger is shifting away from doing that. They didn't do it in set 3. They went back to doing it in set 4, and now they're not again for set 5. So I don't know if they're like going to do it on even numbered sets, but I thought that was something notable because I'm sure there'll be complaints about that. Next up, so this one's very personal. So Scott Johnson of Frogpants, which is his podcast network, has announced that he is reviving The Instance, which is like the World of Warcraft podcast, or like, you know, the Blizzard podcast. Scott had been doing it for over 10 years. Like it started in 2004, I want to say. 2004, 2008 for sure. And huge, absolutely huge fixture in the Blizzard community. He has hosted question panels at BlizzCon before. He has done tons of interviews with like the dev team, like with Chris Metzen. He's good friends with Chris Metzen. All sorts of stuff. So it was when the big like bombshell Blizzard lawsuits were announced, covering the horrific behavior of a lot of folks over there. You know, the instance was kind of in a place where like they were doing it, but there was often not a lot of news coming out. And at that, not a lot of great news. And then when that happened, you know, Scott basically said, I mean, this is probably a good time to just say we're done. And, you know, it's been on hiatus since then. It was assumed to be an indefinite hiatus and just kind of retired. But he kind of had as a surprise announcement. It's coming back. So it'll come back initially as a monthly release, and be season based, as opposed to just a perpetual weekly type thing. And so like seasons will be a little planned out as far as like what content and what formats and stuff like that, any sort of interviews. But he did say, like, because it's going to be a little experimental, you know, if it turns out that there's stuff to talk about and it's reinvigorated and everything, they may go to a weekly. You know, they may change up some formats, bring, I don't know, some things back or whatever. It will be co-hosted with Bobby Franks, who for fans of Scott's daily morning show podcast will recognize him. And Bobby is big on sort of like the more hardcore aspects of World of Warcraft, so like Mythic Plus and things like that, which Scott doesn't do. So to get that perspective on it. So yeah, this was, I'm a big fan of Frogpants stuff. I don't actually listen to podcasts as often as much anymore, just because I don't have a commute. And, you know, when I do go places, I often have the kids in the car, so I have to be pretty choosy about what I can listen to. So, yeah, this makes me happy. So I'm very happy to see stuff come back, even in a much more limited capacity. So yeah. Well, and plus, Scott still currently has his weekly, like hardcore gaming podcast, as well. So like when stuff's come up, like it's typically been on that one. So, that's why there hasn't been like a big push, I guess, until recently to bring back, you know, a podcast about a singular topic. So yeah. And it sounds like it will be focused on World of Warcraft again. So, because in the past, like it kind of veered off into like, you know, Heroes of the Storm or Diablo, Hearthstone and things like that. Also depending on who the co-hosts were at the time. So it sounds like it'll be just focused on World of Warcraft again. So I'm excited. I'm excited who they get for interviews. So, yeah, welcome back, Mr. Johnson. Finally, Vampire Survivors is coming to PlayStation. This was news to me. I was unaware that it was not on PlayStation. So, the end of the month, August 29th, PlayStation folks who, for whatever reason, don't have this on mobile or on Steam or on another platform will be able to play this excellent game that is still way too cheap. And I said what I said. So talking before with a Humble Bundle about like best games if you're on a budget, this game, this game is great. So for those who are not familiar with it somehow, it is a game in which it has very, very retro style graphics. Sort of late NES style graphics. Great, absolute banger of a soundtrack. And you play as a character who gradually gains power as you defeat enemies, and it's just waves of enemies come at you. So it's not quite bullet hell. Because like it's not as frantic as that. But it has kind of that element of like you need to constantly be dodging enemies. And then, but also like defeating them in order to gain experience, which then gives you either weapons or like passive items that then affect like what attacks you do and what sort of abilities you get. The only keys are the movement keys, WASD or the arrow keys. You attack automatically, and stuff goes off automatically. But there's also like you can use a mouse to do like menu selections and stuff like that. And then when you level up, you get like a random choice. So there's also like a roguelike element in there. And it's just the goal is to get to 30 minutes on a level. And you face like progressively harder and harder monsters as the level goes on. So it's fantastic, and it's like $5. It's fantastic. They've got like a Contra DLC. There's like an Among Us DLC. It's super fantastic. So yeah, very excited for PlayStation folks to be able to play this game. It's great. Go check it out. It's like an indie smash hit. It's like right up there for me. Like the level of enjoyment is right up there with like Stardew Valley. And it had, not quite as small of a dev team of like one person, but like it was a pretty small dev team. And there's all sorts of like really nice little puns as far as like the names and abilities and stuff. That like really becomes evident if you know a little bit of Italian or Latin. So yeah, August 29th. So that is going to wrap up our news for this week. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. If you would like to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, be sure to check out our website at 8-bitadventures.com. If you would like to help support this content, the best way to do that is to become a patron over at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Patrons can get benefits for as little as $1 a month. And I would like to give a shout out and thank you to all of the current patrons. Our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his stuff over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And with that, we're done. So as always, have fun, everyone. Happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.